Understood. Now the story begins. Is that the Gemara is teaching us that there's a mitzvah which is so easy, and you're going to see the reward you're going to get. I can't even imagine what that's going to look like in the world to come. So what does the Gemara say? Tzitzis. Let's learn about tzitzis. Maisa. There was a story ba'adam echad with a certain individual. By the way, this was a great individual. We'll see in a second who his rabbi was, and you'll see how great he was. Shahayazar b'mitzvah tzitzis, and the Gemara makes sure to point out that there was one mitzvah that he was exceptionally careful about, and that was tzitzis. What do you think it means to be exceptionally careful with tzitzis?
It's more important than other mitzvot.
So we keep all the mitzvahs. How is one more?
Reminds you for the other 364.
So that's also, is that when you look at the tzitzis, you think about all the mitzvahs. But he was exceptionally careful with tzitzis. Maybe examples would be, even when it's like a bit uncomfortable, he kept the tzitzis on. Even when maybe he probably technically could have taken them off, but he said, I love tzitzis. I want to keep them on all the time. I love tzitzis. What about when someone said, hey, what's with the strings, bro? Maybe that's what Ben's talking about. It's not always easy. But he was exceptionally careful that even when people were making comments, like we learned yesterday, that he was proud of his tzitzis. He loved his tzitzis. He was exceptionally careful with tzitzis. Okay, let's see what happened. So the story is about to take a turn. Shema sheyesh zoyna bekarchei hayam. He heard that there was a lady of ill repute, a zoyna, a prostitute, who lived all the way in the end by the sea, who lived like in a place far away by the sea. And it wasn't just a regular woman, she was a known person. That her fee to be with her, shenaitelas arba meyai zehuvim bischara. She took an exorbitant amount of gold, bullion. That was her price, and you'll see that she had a lot of it, seemingly, already, which we'll see in a second. In order to be part of this experience with her, a person would have to pay an exorbitant amount of money, a crazy amount of money. So this person was drawn in this bad direction. We have a good inclination and an evil inclination. And this person was being drawn by his bad inclination to get involved in something that would not be good for him. And the Torah says, V'shiger la arba miyai zehuvim. And he actually sent. He sent that sum of money to her estate in order to establish v'kavala, to establish a time that he could come to see her. So he heard about it, and then he actually went through the action of sending the payment, and now he's on his way. Zman k'shigi zmanav, and then came the time that it was his time. So, ba v'yoshev ala Pesach, he came to her house. Nichnasa shifchasa v'amrala. So the way that it was is this woman had a maidservant that would run the affairs, and she saw that he had arrived for his appointed time. So she told the woman of ill repute that he's here. Who's here? He's sitting here by the entrance of the house. He's ready. Amra hi yukanes. She said, let him in. This is his time. Nichnas. And they let him in. Now she had things prepared for him. Hitzi aloi sheva mitos. She had these beds set up for him. 6 beds. Sheish shel kesef. Each of the beds were made out of solid silver. 6 beds made out of pure silver. Va'achaz shel zahav. And the highest of the beds was made out of pure gold. The entire bed was a golden bed. Uben kol achas ve'achas, and between each one of the beds, there was a sulam shel kesef. In order to get from the lower bed to bed number 2, there was a large silver ladder that would take you from the first bed of silver to the second bed of silver, then from the second bed of silver to the third, another silver bullion ladder going all the way up. Until you got to the 6th bed, and to go from the 6th bed to the 7th bed of gold was a ladder made out of pure gold. Ve'elyoina shel zahav. Also, v'yoshva al gabe elyoina, and on the top, kishehi aruma, was this woman, and she was sitting there, arum, without any clothing on, waiting for him at the top on the golden bed. Afu Allah, leishav arum kedegda. And he started going up, and he was taking off his clothing, and he was going up to be with her on the top bed. And as he was approaching the top bed, everything that he had prepared for, everything that he had worked for, everything that he spent all this money for, all of a sudden, ba'ar b'tzitziyosav, his 4 tzitzis, all of a sudden, before he knew it, v'tov choloi alpanav, smacked him in the face. He's getting whipped by his tzitzis as he's on his way up. Nishmat, and all of a sudden he bugged out. He just ejected himself, jettisoned from the bed, went crazy. The tzitzis were beating him, slapping him silly, waking him up. The Yoshev al Gabe Karka, and he's back now on ground level. Va'af hi nishmata, and she all of a sudden comes down, and she just runs after the guy. The Yoshev al Gabe Karka, she sits with him, and she says, Va'amar loi. She says, Gapa shel roimi, which is a language of swearing an oath, which was one of the terms of maybe the certain idol worship in Rome, in the ancient Romans. Or I'm swearing in the name of the king of Rome. She says to him, She'eni manichoscha, I'm not going to let you go. Ad she'toymar li ma mum ra'isi bi. I'm not letting you go until you tell me, what blemish did you see in me? I'm not pretty to you? What was it that made you just bug out? And that you ran away from all the beds? What happened? Amala hu avoida. Also a language of swearing an oath. He says, I'm swearing to you. Shaloira isi isha yafa kamaisech. I never actually saw a more beautiful woman than you in my entire life. I'm telling you the truth. Which is very interesting. He didn't want to hurt her feelings, it sounded like. But I'll tell you what happened. Ela mitzvah achas tzivanu Hashem Elokeinu. There's one mitzvah that Hashem gave us. V'tzitzis shema, and it's called tzitzis. V'kosaba, and it says about tzitzis, Ani Hashem Elokeichem. I am the Lord your God. And it says it shtei pa'amim. I am the Lord your God. I am with you. It says about tzitzis 2 times. Why does it say about tzitzis 2 times, I am the Lord your God? So the first time, Ani husha asa li pare. I'm the God that in the time to come, I will ask for the retribution. I will ask for what you owe me. If you did things that weren't exactly so so wonderful. And I'm also the God, she'asir l'shalem schar, I'm also the God that will give you your reward. For every single mitzvah you do, every single moment of a mitzvah, every single good thought that you have, you'll be rewarded for. And therefore, achshav nidme olai, and all of a sudden, while I was wearing my tzitzis, I had this vision. It's very nice that he's giving her like a whole shtickle Torah, as they just jumped off the beds together. And it doesn't say anywhere that they're addressed yet, but this is a crazy Gemara. Now, mistama they have to be, because you can't say divrei Torah if you're exposed in that way. So probably he was already doing kiruv, and he gave her something to wear, and now he's giving her a drasha. She wants to know, like, what's happening. He's like, well, let me tell you about my tzitzis. And he says that all of a sudden, while I was up at the top, I had this vision that my tzitzis became ka'ar be'edim. They became like 4 witnesses. My tzitzis started to become like my witnesses. They were watching me. And in the same way that if I was on top of that bed and I had somebody that I respected and they were giving testimony and they were giving witness to what I was doing, I would stop myself. I had 4 powerful witnesses watching me. Now, anybody who is a bit of a Talmudic scholar should be asking the question, which is an obvious question. Oh, very good. Asha, thank you. I love learning with Talmudists. Everybody knows that 2 witnesses are enough to create reality in a court of law. So why do you need 4? Anybody want to suggest an answer?
Like the cause of the tzitzis.
So meaning, but even though we know that 2 can do the same, 4 can do the same thing and 2 can do. Maybe 2 is like 100.
Maybe because it's doing 2 different averos.
So, okay, very good.
2 can't be like, still there has to be something to adding more, because you say if you testify against yourself, it's like 100. Why don't they say it's like 2?
And what it means is like, great question. What it means is that Anan Sahadi, it's like, if I'm giving testimony, it's like 100, but it can't be biased to myself. I can't give testimony if I'm biased to myself. But it means it's like having a lot of people. 2 is just the minimum that you need, where it creates reality, and 2 could shift reality in Beis Din. 2 is enough to shift reality and make problem. If 100 people say one thing, and then 2 people come into Beis Din and say, you guys were all with us in another place, right? Edom Zayimim, that's enough to say that they all become zomified. What do you mean? It's 100 versus 2. That Edom Zayimim can, the Torah is teaching us, can change the reality of those 100 people. Now those other 2 become zomified if another 2 people come in, say you guys are with us. And then those 2 people, that's the whole Maseches Makkos. 2 is enough to create reality. 4, what were the 4? The 4 was that they had 2 people coming and telling him, if you do this, you're going to be punished. And the other 2 witnesses came to tell him, if you don't do this, you're going to be rewarded. Those were the 4 of the tzitzis. Which is interesting. Anywhere you look at it, there's always just surrounded by these witnesses. That we're walking around just surrounded by this consciousness. That
2 and 2 are reality.
Is mamish reality. 2 and 2 is Ani Hashem Elokeichem, 2 times by tzitzis. That God is saying, like we just saw, that the first time that it says I am your God, is to tell you that I pay not good stuff to those that go against me. And those that go with me, I pay good. I'm a good employer. I pay good. So those are the 2 sets of witnesses. Those are the 4 corners. So he's telling this to this lady. It's a whole, he's giving her a sheer klali about what's happening. Right? What do you think she said to that? Look what she responded. Amrloi, she said back to him, Eini manichoscha, I cannot let you go. Ad shetoimerli, you have to tell me ma shimcha, what's your name? Which is interesting. You see that in places of ill repute, there didn't even need to be a name involved. People can do things. I don't need to know your name. This is like a business transaction. You understand? A name is something like that. Only means there's actually something real there. By the way, name is very, very. Without giving a whole shir on what names mean, when you say somebody's name, it brings a very big closeness right away. There's a whole discussion when you're dating somebody, you're meeting somebody for the first time. You say somebody's name, there's like an immediate. You draw close to them. You say like, Rachel, Sprinzi. It's one person, Rachel Sprinzi. it's a very, very deep bond right away. If you say, how are you enjoying the green superfood chia seed acai smoothie? That's very nice. But you say, Rachel Sprinzi, how are you enjoying the green superfood chia acai goji berry smoothie? There's a deeper bond. When you say the name is very moving. Here you see the fact that she said, I'm not letting you go tell me your name, which means now there was a bonding that she liked his tyrus. She was feeling, there's a heter happening right now. She was feeling close to him. What is your name? Ma shimcha. And not only that, ma shem ircha. Where do you come from? Where'd you grow up? Like, tell me about yourself. Which also you see that she was willing to have all this without any type of just basic, like, who are you? Where do you come from? I want to get to know you first. That's why the Torah is so big on promoting that people get to know each other really before any physicality. Because physicality makes everything complex. It makes everybody's brains go woozy. And everybody knows that. And nobody could disagree with that. It's one of those things that everyone's like, it's so true. You can't argue. It's a bulletproof argument. The only thing is like, that's not an answer. That's like that's a belch or a burp or something. That you want to make a real bond. There has to be a bonding of who are you? Where are you from? I want to know you. And then once there's safety in that, then there's physicality. Most of the world is the exact opposite. I don't even know you. I don't know this, but just 6 silver beds and then the gold one and ladders and like an elaborate situation. Good thing he had his tzitzis. And then she says, Uma Shem Ravcha. Who's your rabbi? Tell me who your rabbi is. Uma Shem Midrashcha. Shata loimet boy Torah. And who, which yeshiva do you go to? Tell me who. She's like, she wants information. It sounds like she likes him. And you know what? He did it. He did it. Kasav v'nosam biyoda, and he gives her all this information. Amda v'chilka kol nisacheya. And what happened? Shalish lamalchus. She starts splitting up all of her wealth into different areas. She gives 1/3 to the government, to the kingdom. Shalish la'aniyim. She appoints 1/3 of all of her wealth to the poor. Ushalish not labiyoda. And she takes 1/3 of her wealth. Remember, she's a very rich lady. She's living in a beachside property. You could tell. And she's taking 400 zehuvim every time. And she takes that, chutz me'ois and matzois, and then she brings everything with her. Obala beis medrash, and what happens? She comes to the beis medrash Rabbi Chia. Rabbi Chia is the tzaddik of the generation. It's like this lady of repute just showing up to like the greatest rabbi in the world's house. Which was the rabbi of this person in our story. Amr Lai. And she says to him, Rebbe. And I'm sure she looked different when she came to the rabbi. And she's already saying rabbi. Why was she coming? Save olai v'yasuni giyoris. I want to convert. I want to follow the ways of Torah. I was so moved by what just happened to me in my life. I saw something great. I want to convert. Amrullah, Biti. Look at the way the rabbi talks to her. Says, my daughter. Isn't that beautiful? My daughter. Like, I see that your intentions are pure. Which is already a feeling of like your family here. He's not kicking her out like, oh, you're that famous lady of ill repute. He saw that there's somebody who wants to change their life. Somebody who is so far away. Shema einayach nosat be'echem min talmidim. See, rabbis are smart. He said, maybe you've got your eye on one of the students here. Maybe that's the reason why you want to convert. which, by the way, is itself not a reason that a person's allowed to convert if they're doing it because for marriage purposes. Oh yeah, I want to be Jewish because of her, because of him. It has to be because I really want to have that relationship with Hashem in that unique way of 613 mitzvahs. He felt, though, there's a big discussion here of what Rabbi Chia was feeling from her, of what her intentions were. And it sounds like he felt, and there's a lot that speak this out, that she was really coming with very pure intentions. So she told him the whole story. Amar lei, and now Rabbi Chia says to her, Lechi zechi b'mikochech. Go, and I want to now have you, that you should join, you should become a Jewess, and you can get married to this Talmud. You can get married to this great rabbi. I see that you've changed your life entirely. He saw from her. And the Gemara says, Oisen matzais, these beds, the Gemara concludes, these beds that in the beginning of the story were used towards horrible means and horrible ends, those very same beds that this person was climbing up, thank God he had his tzitzis. So those same beds were converted into beds that they would be able to make a home with, to make a family with. This is all on the merit of tzitzis. So the Gemara ends by saying, Sheitzi aloi be'isr, that really these beds were set up in a state of forbiddenness, but now they're being set for permittedness. And you see from here that this person and this woman did a tremendous tshuva. She was a very great woman deep inside. It was just trapped. Sometimes a lot of people who get involved in not good things, they have very, very big souls, but it's just trapped by other things that are going on, or they get involved with the wrong crowd, but they have huge potential deep inside of them, and they just need to unleash that, and oftentimes just have a rabbi who can get that, and sometimes somebody just to say no, and the merit of tzitzis, and knowing that there's something more, and she's like, how could you, nobody ever said no to me? And with that merit, so the Torah says that he was given this gift. He was given this gift of marrying a wonderful woman in the merit of tzitzis and saving himself from something catastrophic, because a person could just ruin their entire life doing something in a catastrophic way. So the Gemara ends by saying, so now we have an example of a mitzvah which is so easy to do. And look at the merit that he got in this world. He was saved from tremendous things. This Gemara goes on into all sorts of wild extensions of what this all means. That if this is the reward you get for something easy in this world, and it's unfathomable what the world to come has in store, what about the things that are the harder mitzvahs? What about those more challenging mitzvahs? Imagine what you're going to get for that. We should be zoicha, my friends. The easy mitzvah of tzitzis. Tzitzis is so much about identifying and protecting oneself and knowing that I have witnesses, I have guardians around me that are protecting me, that are helping me. Tzitz means also to see, to tzitz, to gaze at something. That I want to have the ability to have the proper vision and to gaze in the right things and have those that are around me guiding. Tzitzis are like taking you on the right path. There are many, many people who went into dangerous situations and they always knew you need tzitzis, even if they wore it underneath. But they knew tzitzis. Baruch Hashem for us that we can show our tzitzis, we can think about our tzitzis, we can look at our tzitzis. The tzitzis are a tremendous, tremendous mitzvah. B'ezrat Hashem, we should be zoicha to know that Hashem is with us. And every single mitzvah that you do will bring you an eternal reward. An eternal reward. And we're all going to know that after 120 years, but we should be zoicha mamish. We should have the merit to know that now in this world, while things are a bit unclear, that you could use your free will to choose that now. And that will become yours for all eternity. We should be zoicha mamish to this, to Mashiach Tzidkeinu, to the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, B'mehera v'yameinu. Amen. Kol tov, my friends. Have a wonderful day. Chazak u'baruch.